Field trips were always a highlight in school, a welcome break from the monotony of classroom life. This one was supposed to be no different, an excursion to an old, historical village about 2 hours from our school. The place was known for its preserved architecture and old-world charm, but what they didn't tell us was its darker history, one that would make this trip unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. We boarded the bus early in the morning, the sun just starting to rise, casting a golden hue over everything. My friends and I were hyped, cracking jokes and making plans for what we'd do when we got there. I remember Ms. Stevenson, our history teacher, standing at the front of the bus, trying to calm everyone down. She looked as excited as we were, though there was something a little off about her that day. Her usually meticulous hair was slightly disheveled, and her eyes were darting around like she was looking for something. The bus ride was uneventful until we got close to the village. The skies darkened, and a thick fog began to roll in, enveloping everything outside. It was sudden, almost like the fog was waiting for us. I heard a few kids whispering about how creepy it looked, but I shrugged it off. Fog happens, right? But as we neared the village, the bus slowed to a crawl, and the driver, Mr. Peterson, kept glancing nervously at the road ahead. "We're here," Miss Stevenson announced as the bus finally came to a stop. We all filed out, the fog now so dense that you could barely see the person in front of you. The village was eerily quiet, not the bustling tourist spot we were expecting. No cars, no people, just rows of old houses and the distant sound of something creaking in the wind. Miss Stevenson led us through the narrow streets, her pace quickening as if she wanted to get the tour over with as soon as possible. She didn't give us the usual historical spiel, just pointed out a few landmarks with brief descriptions. The village felt wrong. It was too quiet, too empty. And then there were the statues. Scattered throughout the village were these old, weathered statues of children. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothes, their faces twisted into expressions of terror. They looked too lifelike, like they were frozen in fear. One statue in particular caught my eye. A boy around my age, his mouth open in a silent scream, his eyes wide with horror. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me. "Ms. Stevenson, what's with the statues?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She paused, looking at the statue for a long moment before replying, "They're just part of the village's history. Nothing to worry about." But the look in her eyes told me otherwise. There was something she wasn't telling us, something that hung heavy in the air, like a storm about to break. As we continued through the village, the fog seemed to thicken, and I could swear I heard whispers in it, voices just out of earshot. My friends were starting to notice it too, the way the fog seemed to cling to us, how the air grew colder with each step. "We should head back to the bus," one of my friends suggested, her voice trembling slightly. Miss Stevenson hesitated but then nodded. "Yes, I think that's a good idea." But as we turned to leave, a loud creak echoed through the village, followed by the sound of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps like someone or something was following us. We started to walk faster, then run, the sound of footsteps growing louder, closer. The statues seemed to blur in the fog, their faces twisting into something more sinister, their eyes following our every move. We reached the bus, but Mr. Peterson was nowhere to be found. The door was locked, and the windows fogged up from the inside. Panic set in as we pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The footsteps were right behind us now, and the whispers had turned into guttural, raspy voices, speaking in a language none of us recognized. "We need to hide," Miss Stevenson shouted, her calm facade completely shattered. We scattered, running into the nearest building, a small, decrepit house that looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. The door slammed shut behind us, and we huddled together in the darkness, the only light coming from the faint glow of the fog outside the cracked windows. "What's happening?" someone sobbed. Miss Stevenson was shaking, her eyes wide with terror. "This place, it's cursed. I didn't think it was real, just an old legend. But it's real." "What legend?" I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "The village was abandoned centuries ago after the children disappeared. They say something took them, something that still roams the streets, looking for more. The statues, they're the children. They were turned to stone, frozen in fear. And now it's coming for us. As if on cue, the door creaked open, and a figure stepped into the room. It was shrouded in fog, its features indistinguishable, but I could feel its eyes on us. The temperature dropped sharply, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, like the very air was suffocating me. We backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The figure moved closer, and as it did, I felt my body start to stiffen, my muscles locking up. I could see it happening to the others too, their faces contorting in fear, their eyes wide as their bodies began to turn to stone. "No, please no!" someone screamed, but it was too late. One by one, we were paralyzed, frozen in our final moments of terror. I could feel the stone creeping up my legs, my torso, my arms. My vision blurred as my eyes turned to stone, locking me in place, forever staring at the figure that had taken us. The last thing I heard before the world went silent was the sound of those heavy footsteps, walking away into the fog, leaving us as part of the village's cursed history. They say the village is still there, hidden in the fog, waiting for the next group of unsuspecting visitors. The statues, they say, look eerily familiar, like children from a nearby school. But no one really knows because those who enter the village never return.